Thank you, Bethany. And sorry, Annabelle, I only wanted to introduce you. Annabelle is the impact officer at CREAF. She has a long experience in this kind of subject, in engaging stakeholders. So I think is the perfect person to lead this panel. And that's all from my side. Please, Annabelle, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Enrique, and good morning, everybody. Thanks to the organizers of this interesting training workshop and to all participants. I think we have 75 people here with us, so it's a good participation. So my name is Anabel Sanchez, and as it has been said, I'm the Impact Officer at CREAF. I have the wonderful opportunity of moderating this first panel on engaging stakeholders in environmental decision making. So we have today 3 panelists that are going to share their experiences on how they implemented good practices on engaging stakeholders in decision making. That is, how they managed to actually involve stakeholders in participating by sharing their concerns, their needs, their knowledge into some specific decision-making process linked to the management of the natural environment. Okay? So I'm sure with these experiences that are going to be shared today, we're going to learn very useful practices that have been implemented at different levels. So we have examples at municipal level, but also supra-municipal or even regional levels. I think it's going to be quite enriching panel. So, okay, we're going to start with the panelists, which is the interesting part of today. And just so you know, panelists, you have 7-8 minutes, and I will inform you when you have 1 minute left to finish your sharing of experience, okay? So we're going to start with Annelies Broekman. She is a freelance consultant on water management policies and citizen participation, and she will share with us her experience on deliberative spaces for climate change adaptation. So, far away, Annelies, it's your turn.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful introduction and for the invitation to be here today. And I hope this venue can help us all progress in this difficult subject. And indeed, I start with saying that it is a very interesting and complex subject that benefits of this multi-profile kind of debate that is promoted by projects such as Progress. And so I also enjoy the panel today. So in order to start, I thought, why do we want to integrate people, the different people into decision-making on environmental issues? So why is the first question to ask, and why is because of this huge range of different values that are embedded in natural systems, which at their turn embed the, let's say, socio-economic systems we all live in. So this combination between human-induced systems and natural systems makes that there is a broad variety of values on the table. So most of these values we know closely because those are close to the anthropologic dimension. And so we have values related to economic drivers, to the development of territories. The use of the territory is the first value that people know about. But already since 50 years, researchers are putting into light the fact that there are a lot of other values to manage, which are maybe more difficult to express in monetary terms or in terms that can enter our decision-making system. So the need to manage this broad diversity of values is the main motivation to directly integrate the ones who bear these values, so the people. So the people who are engaged in the dynamics of a territoria, in creating value or affecting it in some way, should be part of decision making on the overall system. That's a basic concept. So that's why we speak about governance. Governance is a terminology that wants to introduce this complexity both of formal and informal decision-making spaces, and also the words about deliberative, etc. These terminologies refer to the fact that there is a continuous flux of values and decisions to be made on these values. So it's a dynamic system that combines different aspects of ruling, let's say. And I stress both formal and informal because in our research environment, we are promoting projects that want to consolidate innovative practices on governing this complex system. So we speak about governance for adaptation, and we speak mostly about global change. And with this terminology, we would like to give the idea of an integration between climate change induced drivers and anthropological induced drivers. So the territories change in multiple ways through different drivers, through different layers of creation of value, and on different dimensions of this value. So we can speak about complex systems. Indeed, a lot of science in support of innovative governance is based on complex system analysis and engineering. I'm sure you've heard about it before. For example, in environments like the nexus analysis, this is a key point brought forward. But it's not only about nexus, it's also sectoral environmental policies or of research, resource management. So what do we do in front of complexity? And we say we want to engage the authors of this complexity into decision making, but how are we going to face it and produce, let's say, this innovation in governance? So the challenges ahead or the opportunities this framework of reasoning offers is an increased coordination between all these different actors. So we need coordination between institutions that take decisions at different levels. We call that interdepartmental or interinstitutional coordination. We need coordination between different layers of institutions, so higher, let's say, national, regional, local ones. And we need a horizontal coordination between the different actors engaged, both institutional and non-institutional. This coordination is needed in order to harmonize the policies and the developments that are induced by the socioeconomic decision-taking of a territory. Because often we have cases in which policies are contradictory between each other. So maybe a classical example is a contradiction between agronomic development and the development of a sustainable water policy, for example. Many trade-offs need to be managed, both at a formal and informal level. So in order to transform a territory to a less vulnerable situation in the terms of global change, but also to introduce this overall concept of sustainability and gain environmental justice objectives of equity in access to natural resources and equity in sharing of benefits, this task is crucial. So the approach is always in this dimension an integrated one, aiming to coordinate different values and to improve these links between different aspects of taking a decision. A good example of policy making that takes into account the necessary engagement of stakeholders, I think at EU level, the Water Framework Directive is the #1 example. I think it's one of the first legislations that made it compulsory to introduce stakeholder perspectives into decision making. And it also gave a big, let's say, promotion to all the science and methodologies in theory and practice on implementing this engagement strategy. Today we can see there is a vast
1 minute.
1 minute. There is a vast range of opportunities. Annabelle and myself, we've been engaged in projects on adaptation for water management. So you had one territorial dimension as a water basin where these techniques were implemented. There are a lot of guides and guidelines available. It is a consolidated research field, but we have some challenges, and I conclude with some challenges, which is the legitimacy of deliberative spaces. Maybe also participants can later introduce some aspects they might have experienced in participating in these spaces. So often for institutions, it's difficult to legitimize spaces in a juridical form when they combine formal and informal structures. It's sometimes difficult to take up the results of participative or deliberative processes into institutional dynamics which are already in place since a long time before this was a request to introduce aspects. And another big challenge I see is the maintenance of these spaces in front of a larger period of territorial management. Sometimes the rhythm of the development of decision making is in a contradiction with the rhythm that people experience in territories. So there is a lot to be faced still. I hope this short introduction was helpful to stimulate a rich discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annelies. Thank you very much. So we're going to go for the second panelist. We have with us also Karen Woods from Coordinator. So she's going to share this experience of the Dublin Mountains makeover and how they did the stakeholder engagement there. So if you're ready, Karen, you can go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll just share my screen here now. Okay, can you see that now?
We can see it perfectly.
Yep. Okay. Hopefully it'll move along. So good morning, everyone. I just want to give a brief overview of the Dublin Mountains Makeover stakeholder engagement process, which started last year. I'll cover kind of a quick background, the communications and engagement strategy process, the stakeholder mapping, some of the key objectives and key messages we were trying to get across, and the range of outputs we used and the impact of these. So Coillte have been part of the Dublin Mountains Partnership, which has been a very effective partnership over the last 12 years, which is involved in managing and providing sustainable recreation in the Dublin Mountains. And it's from this that the Dublin Mountains Makeover project evolved and is now a key pillar of the new Dublin Mountains Partnership strategy. Back in 2019, before the project was launched, we had a small online consultation, and this was just trying to gauge the feelings from the general public for this forest conversion plan. And overall, there was a very positive response from the public and a very keen desire from the public to see continued improvement in the recreation facilities in the mountains. So our engagement and communication strategy was very much an integrated, iterative and targeted approach. Here we have the process kind of is similar to a tree. We started with what we have the heartwood, which is the project identity, so what it is and how we want to be seen by the stakeholders. And if you think of the bark, that's our stakeholders, so who they are, where they sit, what they think about the project. In terms of the trunk, these are the strategic goals, what we want the stakeholders to think. The boughs, these are the objectives, how are we going to achieve these strategic goals. And then moving into the branches, the key messages, what we're saying and to whom. In terms of the leaves, this is the output schedule, when, where and how we're saying it. And then the seeds, this is how we evaluate the impact and how we measure success of the project. Moving on then, one of the key tasks was looking at, we brought in about 10 land managers into a room and to identify all the key stakeholders involved in the project. And here we identified over 140 different project stakeholders. And for each of them, we rated them in terms of their power and interest in the project and placed them within this matrix you can see here. And this was how we were going to be communicating and engaging with them. So those with low power and low interest in the project, these stakeholders, we would be monitoring them. Those with high interest but low power in terms of the impact they could have on the project, for example, residents or the forest users, these were very much, we would be engaging with these stakeholders. For those with high power who could influence getting licenses or permission to do works, but may not have a huge amount of interest in the project, it was very much about informing these people, making sure they knew what the project was about, what was happening, where and when. And then the key stakeholders with high power, high interest in the project, here these were the key people and stakeholders we would be working very closely together with. So then moving on into the objectives and key messages and outputs. The objectives, it was very much emphasising the responsibility and urgency to do the right thing, highlighting the key benefits for each of the target audience groups, and using a wide range of channels to communicate with a very diverse stakeholder group. It was important to demonstrate transparency and build trust by communicating early and often and making sure people felt they were heard. And again, maintain a focus on the project, developing a bespoke identity to encompass the area into one unit. And then working very closely with our key partners in the Dublin Mountains Partnership, the local authorities in Dublin, and different agencies across the project. So some of the key messages and outputs, again, these were targeted for the different stakeholders groups. So for example, the forest users, which of course with COVID had greatly increased over the last year. The key message was we are taking these actions to benefit nature and people, especially future generations. There will be some short-term pain, but for long-term gain, and it's the right thing to do. So the outputs here, we would have looked at ensuring people knew what was happening, where and when, how it was going to impact the forest users, and how to communicate with us if you had a concern or a query about the project. So this was delivered through information boards on site, road signage, intervention-specific signage, for the different operations taking place, and of course then a lot of information on social media as well. So you can see here and here there was a wide variety of different outputs used across the project. Some sample outputs here, we produced a leaflet which was distributed across the homes in South Dublin. We had a 2-minute video on our website and on social media explaining the project. And then here's some examples of the intervention specific signage. And of course then all the time trying to maintain some press coverage and information for the public to make sure everyone is aware of what's happening. Overall, the impact of this project, during the initial communication, there was a 2-week focus media campaign with a very wide audience on national radio and television, again also in print media, and then also very much a targeted social media campaign, which had extremely high engagement rates, much higher than industry standards. And then also through the year, it was very much focusing on that continued communication in making sure people are aware and involving. We also would have hosted one-to-one stakeholder engagement with those who had keen interest or concerns and taking their interest on board. So again, we would have liked to have much more on-site interactions with different stakeholders, but of course these during the COVID times were limited, so it was very much more through Zoom and other campaigns and social media. So that kind of gives you an overview of the engagement. process, which has been very successful, and we're just starting work now again in year 2. This is very much a long-term project, and will continue for many years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen, because I didn't even have to tell you you had 1 minute left. So you really made it wonderfully to the time you had. Thanks for a really interesting experience you shared. And finally, for the last panelist in this first panel of today, we have Patricia Rovira from the Barcelona City Council, and she's going to tell us about this experience of the Barcelona Citizen Council for Sustainability. So you go ahead, Patricia, and the same. I will say 1 minute when you have it left.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, all of you. I'm sharing my slides, or are you?
Yes.
Look, okay.
But is it presenter mode because it's a PDF? I'm not sure.
Yes. Is a problem? Is it a problem?
No.
No. Okay. Good morning, all of you. Thank you for inviting us. But I have to tell you that my English is not so good, and I am here because my chef Marta Cuixart is not. She doesn't have the ability to come, and I try to explain our good practice as best as I can. Annabelle, if you need to help me in some word, I agree with you. Okay, so this project invites us to explain the Barcelona Citizens Council to Sustainability, but it's not easy to explain this council if you don't have any information about this document that we apply the Citizens' Commitment for Sustainability. We have this document in Catalan, Spanish, and English, so we can. Is it in the web? I can put the link after my presentation, and you can have all in English. But this document is like our roadmap to go to our good goals, and the 10 goals in sustainability in the city of Barcelona. We always talk about city, not the metropolitan area or not the province, because this is a municipality policy. Okay, so this document had 10 goals. I go ahead in the slides just to show you the goals, what the goals are. You can see 1 to 10, and I think for you is good to see that, because the first goal we identified was biodiversity. We call biodiversity from urban green areas to the renaturalization of the city. These 10 goals are described like from one point to a better point. We start from urban green areas because this is the document. I go atrás. From 2002, it's not here, 2012 to 2022. This is the second document. We start with the first, that was 2002 to 2012, but this was finished, you know. And the first was Barcelona was had to be green areas, and now is from the green areas to the renaturalization of the city. And we use this form of write the sentence because we are not at the beginning. We are in a process that comes and that starts a lot of years ago. Really, it starts in 1998. In that year, we founded in Barcelona the first Barcelona Sustainable City Council. It's a lot of time ago, and the goal and the objective of that council was to create the roadmap. So in 1998, we worked 2 years until 2000 to have a big participatory process in all the city, with all the districts, with all the sectors, with citizens in the neighborhoods, to have all the information of what they are worried about in the city. And with this information, a lot of information, we take 2 years, 2000 to 2002, to write this, to publish this document, the first one. So in this document, we start with approximately 99 or 100 members of the city council that signed. They were agree with these goals, and they are going to work to do actions to achieve these goals. There were 100 organizations that were schools, there were unions, there were companies and associations, so civil associations. There were a lot of different, there were institutions, public institutions also. There were a lot of, that you can see here, a lot of different sectors of the city that was agree with this. And they, the 10 members of the city council, had the mission of spread this commitment all around the city. And then we work 10 years, and we arrived to 2012 with 800 members in this commitment, working in the city. In these 10 years, the city council promote to create a technical secretariat. This is when I start working here, and I am the chief of the technical secretariat. That we support the members to do the actions that they want. If they need partners to do an action, we help them to find us. If they need money, we don't have money directly, but we can find some others that subvencionan, ¿cómo se dice subvencionan?
Provide this money.
Provide this money for them, or some companies that can help them directly. Our work in the technical secretariat is to network, to do the network between the members and the city hall. And then in 2012, we finished this commitment, and the city council wants to renew the members and renew the commitment. And now we are in the second time, and we are working with a new city council that have approximately 60 members, not 100, but 60, but more active 60 members. And
sorry,
then,
Patricia, you have 1 minute left.
Okay. So we have 2 years to finish this. 1 year to finish this second commitment. I go back, and in our environmental challenges, you can see that one, I don't know if you will see, is renaturalization of the city and local biodiversity conservation. This is important in the city council because the city council, we work in the plenary, where is the 60 members working together, but always in work groups and conventions. In work groups, we have now 7 work groups, and one of them is just to promote the biodiversity and green policies in the city. And this group is formed with 12 members, associations, universities, companies, all together, and they work with the technicals of the city hall, and they assess, asesoran, no? Then they accompany the technicals to redact, to publish the a new strategy of green in the city. So it has been a very important work group in the City Council in the new strategy plan that is published in this 2021. So this group are working a lot. We have our group in waste in the city, a group in other issues, but the group working in green and biodiversity is very important. Here we have just to finally individual action. We help entities to do individual action plans, but double scale, that is organization that have others in their other associates, works in double scale. Micro networks working in one subject like mobility or green or things. And the best for us is collaborative projects. We are working from 3 years to now in collaborative projects. In Action Plan Climate, I don't know if you know, but we have an Action Plan Climate in Barcelona, and we have every 2 years 10 big projects to achieve the climate in Barcelona, and they are formed for different entities that work collaboratively. Okay. Sorry. So you have here more information. I don't know if this is the presentation you expect, but I will be here for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Thank you all the panelists. And now we have some time for some questions and answer, and maybe that will help to explain some more details about your specific experiences. I will start.
Annabelle, we can't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry.
We were, when you said, I will start, and then it was muted.
Okay, so I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry.
So, okay, we're going to have some little time for debate with the panelists. So we will gather your questions to ask them. And I think Enrique is going to help with that. So if there are any questions, please write them on the chat, and Enrique will gather them and post them to the panelists. To break the ice, I do have some questions for the three of you. So I'll start with one, and we'll see if there are other coming from the audience, or I will have some more for you, so don't worry. We can start with something quite simple, but I think that is key because of the theme of the panel, of this first panel. So this first panel is on sharing good practices on engaging stakeholders in environmental decision making. So my first question to the three of you is, could you share what worked best and what worked least in this engagement of stakeholders for decision making in your specific experiences? So we can go round in the same order that we had the presentation. Try to be a little bit short so we have a more dynamic debate. And I give the floor to Annelies for this one best and one least idea on your experience.
Fantastic. I try to be shorter. So the best experience for me was engaging citizens in co-designing and co-producing measures for adaptation. Our latest project was called Redapta, so to apply these concepts of adaptation, and jointly with citizens from a delta region in the Tordera River in Catalonia. It was a project that allowed us to make a strategical document including specific measures that had a big consensus and that were, let's say, sustained by the people living in the territory. So projects like Redapta helped people concretely engage in the production of proposals that actually have all the characteristics to be taken up by the administration. And in that sense, I think that the positive thing was that administration was engaged right from the start, together with the citizens, and so co-create measures that are actually viable. And then you said the biggest challenge. In another project, we had the opportunity to work together in the Be Water project. We worked together to make river basin adaptation plans. And I can say that then the challenge was that in order to engage such different, although similar environments, cultural and the language, and trying to meet the needs of local stakeholders by applying a general methodology is a challenge, and our implementing teams managed to overcome it brilliantly by investing extra time. So a challenge is that technicians and researchers engaged in citizen participation projects need to have a high level of flexibility, attention, and support and let's say proactive engagement in order to overcome little differences between different realities.
Thanks, Annelies. So Karen, your experience.
Okay, can you hear me there? Yes? Yeah. So I suppose what worked best, I think probably I think it came to the tone of a lot of the communications and engagements with the public and range of stakeholders. Before, I think probably Quilcho may not have had as much communications on projects and probably kept more technical forestry terms, but this was very much making it simpler, lots of graphic information signage, easier to understand, more simple language, and a lot more use of social media with little videos explaining the different practices on continuous cover forestry, on the different methods we use, and kind of instead of and we kind of came up with new terms, remove and replant, R&R, kind of more catchier lingo to engage people with. So that was very effective, and anytime you went up to the forest you always saw people reading the information signages. So that was certainly very effective at getting the message across and relaying people's concerns and helping them understand what's going on. Probably what was least effective, I suppose, is given the COVID pandemic last year, that certainly limited the amount of on-site stakeholder engagement where you could bring in more people. We had to be very targeted in trying to involve the range of stakeholders with emails out to invite them to Zoom meetings or different things to explain. So we probably didn't capture as much input from different stakeholders, but this is very much a long-term project which we can continue, and hopefully in better times we can start to have more on-site communications and getting more input. So it is a gradual conversion project, so there is time to take more of that input from other stakeholders on board as we progress. Thank you.
Wonderful, Karen. Thank you for these contributions. So let's see on the Barcelona Citizen Council experience. And I take the opportunity to highlight that the link to the Barcelona Citizen Commitment to Sustainability document has been shared in the chat, so you can find it there. Patricia.
Thank you. Yes, we have a platform online that is called Decidim Barcelona, Barcelona Decides, who is the platform for the online participation, and we are putting all the contents of the City Council in this platform, but it's not ready, so I can share right now, but in 1 month, I think it's working. If I understand, you asked for the best practices we had, and
Well,
the
thing that worked best. So what
yeah.
activity or methodology worked best in engaging people, and what did work not so well?
The members of the city council that they consider the best is the opportunity to be part of the processes in the city hall, in the municipality. For example, we was a part of the creation in the zero waste strategy that is running on right now, and the climate emergency declaration that is just one year published, and in the plan a climate action plan. So there are 3 big plans in strategic in the city that they co-produce with the members of the city council. So they consider this the best. And then the least, the thing that we consider is not working so well is the members of the network. We are approximately 60 members, but in the network, on the network that is part of the commitment, we are 1,500 members. But there are some more important, a lot of important that they are not here. So now we have a lot of members of tourism sector that now are here, and commerce sector, but they are industrial, for example, or big companies that are not involved in our process. That this is perhaps the least that we achieve. There's someone that is not here, and we work in having them here.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Yes. I think this is very often one of the difficulties, to have on board everybody that should be on board. Yeah. So it's quite common. Okay, Enrique, what do we have in the chat?
Questions. Yeah, I have one of them that is very interesting. That's for all. Is if they have any methodology to measure the success of their project, of these strategies. Then I have another question that I will keep for the last panel, because I think it's more related to that. If you follow the obligation of the birds and habitat directives of the European Union, and I think this is more focused in implementation projects. So if you don't mind, I will keep it. But in any case, Jonathan Spazzi, you have the word if you want to question directly this about these methodologies, or if you have a more specific questions about that.
Sorry, Enrique, are you asking me to expand on the question?
If you want, I mean, it's not only to give you the word if you wanted.
No, not necessarily. It's just a subject that I'm reflecting on myself for some projects I'm working, and I always found there's a lot of effort put on designing and delivering projects, maybe less so in assessing, evaluating, and getting feedback from them. So it's a question that I have for myself. Maybe some of the panelists can help answer for me.
So who wants to start? I would just add, of course, the objective of this engagement is to involve stakeholder in decision making. So has the engagement brought change in the structure of decision making processes on how they're traditionally performed? I think that's a wonderful question. So please go ahead. Annalisa wants to start.
I can start if we use the same order. That's easier. I break the ice. Wonderful question, wonderful issue, which is a key issue, of course. What is the impact of all the efforts invested? So it depends, of course, on what the objective was. As Annabelle says, if the objective was to contribute to decision making, of course, indicators like the number of proposals taken up, or the number of actual measures that are integrated in the implementation stage process is an indicator. The diversity of stakeholders, of course, and other tailored indicators are usually used. But one of the important things is, I think, to establish well-thought surveys to all the participants. So survey is mostly a used tool, methodology, but I think personally a lot of effort needs to be invested, and the future is to engage the citizens in following up the implementation of the decision they worked on. So participatory monitoring, participatory establishment and measuring of those indicators that are designed. They can also be designed together, so co-design, but especially I would insist to deliver a strategy for participated follow-up after the project live. That is a key. It would allow also to continue the engagement. As I said before, one of the challenges is to build this engagement in a more established way. So following up together with the stakeholders is a tool for a double goal, to know how the implementation is going and to continue engaging.
Very good, Annelies. So Karen, what's your idea on this question?
Karen, sorry, before you answer, because it's a little bit related and you have a direct question for you, that is, if you have, what kind of feedback do you get from stakeholders as a result of your engagement? So maybe it's related, if you have feedback, and also how you measure this feedback somehow, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we would have, my colleague Hannah would have been involved very much in the communication. So we would have analysed a lot of the media coverage received, all recorded, all had to record all the email impacts, queries, questions coming in, all on in terms of social media, again monitoring the hits, the shares, the likes, the engagement, and all of these had demonstrated high coverage in the initial media campaign, and with any later media coverage we received. And also in terms of social media, the engagement responses were extremely high compared to industry standards, with engagement rates over 4 or 5%, where I think they're typically well below 1%. So this was demonstrating really positive responses for us, and demonstrated this was a very effective way of communicating with such a wide range of stakeholders for the project. In terms of some of the feedback we have received, overall it was very positive. I suppose it is very much, a lot of the forests in the Dublin Mountains have traditionally been managed for timber production, would be dominated by non-native species planted originally for timber when the city was much further away and recreation wasn't so high up on the agenda. So it's really something that the public, of course, are desiring to see more native woodland to enhance the habitat for nature and to improve the forest for recreation. So doing this through the mix of continuous cover forestry and planting more native woodlands is very much what we feel a lot of the public want to see, and that was certainly very much most of the feedback has been very positive to that. I suppose quite a number of queries coming in were, why can't Cuilche, the State Forestry Company, be doing this in more places across the country? And so it's trying to get that balance of the importance, getting the message across, the importance of timber production and growing our own timber supply, and balancing the needs then for recreation, for biodiversity, for soil protection. And so through that combination of continuous cover forestry and some more native woodland planting, but with still producing some timber in the Dublin Mountains, and explaining that story of Dublin timber and the importance of it, it's trying to balance those values and importance for everyone.
Good, Karen. So, Patricia?
Okay, I just explain shortly. We are a technical secretariat, so we don't execute projects directly. We support others to do. And now we are working in two lines of measurement of the project success. One is the results of the project, that if we achieve the 99% or 80, or what were the problems or the things that that they have. But the other is the success of the participation of all the members in the development of the project. And we are working in this measurement, how the project is developed to achieve the goal, the objective, and if the participation of every member in the project is equal or not, if one of them is the leader, the others not, or what is the success, or what project has more success, and what is the model that they use to have the success. And we work in this right now, with 3 members, with 7 members, if there is the difference, or we are working in a battery, in a series of indicators to measure the success in the process, not in the project. I don't know if this is interesting for you, but it's interesting for the technical secretariat or the city council, because it's the paper we have, the role we have. So.
Very good, Patricia. I don't know if there are other questions, Enrique.
No, not in the chat already.
I do have one, so maybe we can go for it. You think
Okay.
we have time?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so of course we're talking about the engagement of stakeholders in environmental decision making, and one of the very important impacts, let's say, is on the success of these projects related to the environmental decision making. But for me, it's also really important another side of it, which is the effect on the actual people participating. Okay, so I would like to ask you if you have measured or you have some idea on how participating, engaging in these experiences on decision-making for environmental management have had on the actual people, so on the learning of participants themselves, okay, or on the empowerment of these participants, of these stakeholders, for further participation in other decision-making processes. So some ideas on this I think will be quite interesting also. Thank you.
Yeah, do we follow the same line? Thank you, Annabelle. Of course, it's crucial because there is a phenomena called stakeholder fatigue, no? So if we are unable to really deliver a good process, people will not be satisfied and not interested to go on. That's why I think these projects have a responsibility towards the people and their time. And actually, from our surveys, we learned that we had some success and some people were very happy with, especially I think the face-to-face sessions allow new networking activities for them, so they get new contacts also with people that you would think they already speak with, but no. So new relations are established, which is particularly empowering for local people, and new communication channels. I think these processes often allow to gain visibility for people on the territory who are concerned about an issue or trying to promote some best practices. They actually said they have benefited from the visibility that such projects can provide.
Thanks, Annalise. So Karen, it's your turn now.
Okay, thank you. So yes, it's certainly been very positive engagement through the process, and as I said, it's been demonstrated through the high engagement. I think it's very much a long-term project, so it's to maintain that engagement and ensuring people have those ongoing communications and hopefully develop that further now as hopefully in time that we can have more on-site stakeholder engagement and bringing that in. So to date, there's also then working closely with the Dublin Mountains Partnership, which has been established over the 12 years. Again, we're tying in with a wide range of the stakeholders, and we would very much be sitting on the board of that, so have that ongoing engagement with stakeholders, which is crucial to the success of the project when we're working in such a high recreation area with a lot of visitors and managing that. So it's we feel and hope that it'll continue to maintain that high engagement rates going forward.
Good, Karen. So Patricia, do you think the people that have participated have learned from their participation? They have taken some good experience and that has enabled positive things also for them?
Yes, I agree with Annalise. In our case, we have some people, members of the City Council that learn. They explain that they learn. They have good contacts with other people. They have visibility, and they have the opportunity to be involved in European projects or other spaces, even in the TV or some places. So we care this because this is important to be for them, and we want they be satisfied from being in the network. So we search for these opportunities of learn and all of this, and they are also be satisfied to work with technical officers of the City Hall. This is not as usual to talk with the chief of waste or the chief of the biodiversity in the City Hall, and they have the opportunity. So this is good. They think this is good for them. Yeah.
Very good. So I don't know if there are other questions or some specific things you would like to mention, maybe. So from people that are listening, but also for the panelists, if there's something that we didn't ask and they really want to share, might be the time now before we wrap up to finish.
We have a last minute question. It's from Rasul. Maybe Rasul, you want to make it yourself. It's more related to not only because you have just asked Annabelle about their reaction, if they learn about the process, if they are tired, but Rasul, I think his question is related to if they learn about the ecological effects. I mean, we are talking about the environment, is the main subject of the Progress project. So he say how stakeholder engagement impacts outcomes considering the shifts in individual attitudes and behaviors towards the ecological effects. So more or less the question is this, if they also get a better feeling or engagement in the environmental side.
Mm-hmm. So anyone from the panel would like to answer? If stakeholders participating change also their attitudes and behaviors towards the environment. I understand.
Well, okay. I want to explain a little thing. In Barcelona, there are a lot of people, 100 and I don't remember, 1 million, and every 5 years there is a questionnaire in all the city about attitudes and habits of the population, and we do a lot of campaigns of recycling, take care, the green, the biodiversity, all the items, and we work a lot. Our impression is that people are changing, but the results of the of these questionnaires is not good. It said that people are not so motivated to change their habits. And now, because our impression is different to the results, we are revising. So we are having a revision of the questions, because perhaps it's the question that is not well right, and people say no, and they do yes, or we don't know, but the results objectives are, people are not changing so much. But it's every 5 years. I think it's next year. It's we have one project of this, and we will see.
Thank you very much. So I think maybe this is the time to close this panel. Enrique, what would you think? I think it's been really interesting, and lots of ideas have been shared. So
I don't know if Karen or Annalise want to make a short intervention on this question, and we left it.
Great. In my impression, there is a lot of pedagogy that is possible to do inside a participatory process. So just to add on what Patricia says, because Patricia has numbers, she had surveys on attitude, which in my project was not there, but the feeling was that there was a lot of learning. I mean, people were said they learned a lot. If these aspects really change their behavior, I don't know. But there is a huge opportunity to introduce also scientific concepts. And that I can say that in our project we had also the goal to present and explain scientific knowledge, which maybe these actors didn't get before. And this we measured, and this was impactful. I mean, people answered, yes, I learned new concepts, and indeed there was information I didn't have access to on beforehand. So thank you very much.
well, I think that what Patricia was sharing with us is a different level, because actually these questionnaires are not only answered by the people participating in your process. So this is quite a huge bias to try to compare it with the actual engagement process.
Yeah.
That's something to consider. Maybe Karen would like to add something if we still have some time.
Yeah, just briefly, I suppose, again, we wouldn't have any measurements or data collected, but just from some of the conversations, I think it's still very much a learning process for a lot of our stakeholders to really understand that the ecological impact. And I think over time now we'll be working closely with the Dublin Mountains Partnership to get more long-term biodiversity monitoring plots in across the hills, and to really demonstrate the impact of this, and hopefully we can use that to then engage the public much more and help them understand these processes and the importance of managing this mosaic of habitats across the mountains, and helping them engage, and in turn then it'll help them to when they go up to visit the mountains, that they can appreciate and respect the environment much more, and again help us safeguard and protect the resource we're trying to manage up there. But I think it's still very early days really with a lot of them, that it will be, we continue to work in that area with a lot of the stakeholders.
Good. So Enrique, you lead.